My guest today says when she was a teenager, she would stare in the mirror for extensive periods of time, will herself to be popular, and count the pores on her face. Today, she's going to share her journey and how she found peace. Welcome to Bridges. My guest today is Scarlet Hiltibidal, and she's going to talk to us about her journey, and she actually penned it in a book as well called He Numbered the Pores on My Face. And Scarlet, it's good to have you back again.
It's so good to be back.
So I think this is going to be such a great conversation as we talk about kind of our journey and looking at ourselves in the mirror and what we come up with, and you've kind of penned that all in this book. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, this book I wrote, so last time I was here, I was talking about my book for adults about fear. Mm-hmm. This one I wrote for teenage girls. I have 3 daughters. So the short answer is I have 3 daughters. And it's really hard to be a teenager. Mm-hmm. So hard. Like writing that book was so hard. It was way harder than the first one because those memories are like really painful and it's all the emotions are so big. And anyway, I have 3 little girls and they're not teenagers yet, but they will be. And I just don't want them to waste years and have the angst that I had to the degree that I had it. I just kind of want to help them learn to look at Jesus to find who they are instead of, like you said, staring at their own faces for hours.
Yeah,
like
in
I
the
did.
mirror.
Yeah.
Well, and like I did.
Yeah.
And like I didn't realize even when people would say to me, well, you know, that's just what it's like to be a teenager. Really, Scarlet, a lot of that follows us through life. If we don't really come to understanding our worth in Jesus Christ, that will always be a part and a piece of our lives. And it is a lot of waste. Like when I look back, and I shared with you earlier, I really in the 7th grade can remember praying, okay, Jesus, could you take these Whiteheads away? Like I was so embarrassed of that.
Yeah.
And adults can sometimes think that those are such minor things, but they don't feel that way at the time.
No, they don't feel that way at the time. And like you said, it doesn't just go away. I mean, it's definitely not as intense. I don't stare at my face for hours. Sometimes I stare at my face and scrutinize, you know, but not like that. But you're right, it doesn't go away. I was telling you earlier, I woke up with a pore situation, not even thinking, you know, when you just wake up, you don't remember your life yet. And I was like, as far as I got into the day was, let me put makeup on. And I was like, no, not today. I'm going to be on a TV show today. And then I'm like trying to cover it up. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I started laughing, thinking, I'm going on this TV show to talk about a book called He Numbered the Pores on My Face. Subtitle has the words clogged pores in it. So then I was like, oh, this is the perfect day for this to happen. So I was going to like talk about, and now you can't really see it probably as well, but yeah, but like I was still insecure about it.
Absolutely.
And I was still like, oh no, this matters.
Right.
You know?
And as adults, we still want to try to cover it up. We don't
Yeah.
want other people to see anything. And I love the title of the book, He Numbered the Pores on My Face, and the subtitle is amazing. Hottie lists, clogged pores, eating disorders, and freedom from it all. Like, I like the freedom part. But tell me about this. What is this hottie list?
Okay, hottie list. So that's chapter 1. The story is, so my parents had an interesting dynamic. My dad was like the laundry doer, like that was his thing that he did. So he was changing the sheets on all the mattresses one day.
Okay.
And he happened to discover while I was at school, the hottie list, that's what I called it, that was labeled the hottie list, hidden under my mattress. And it was 18, I mean, I still remember exactly what this list looks like. It was the 18 hotties I went to school with, ranked by like, I forgot what I said in there, like hotness, dreaminess, how likely they were to fall in love with me. And so I lived in Miami at the time, where it's like very Hispanic. So instead of people saying, oh man, they'll say, ay. And I was not Hispanic, sorry, but I was in that culture. So at the very bottom, my dad says, I wrote something like, I just love boys so much, or I'm so boy crazy, exclamation point. Anyway, he found it, and I was so humiliated because I was the firstborn, and nobody had come before me. Nobody had liked boys ahead of me, so I was like,
So you were like
ashamed.
the first one that had the hottie list, and you got
Yes.
discovered by your dad.
Yes, and it was so embarrassing. And anyway, in that chapter,
Did he tease you?
I don't think he had a chance to because I just started. I came home from school and he said, Scarlet, I was changing the sheets, and I just knew, and I'm like, and I just exploded with angst and tears and hid in my closet. And anyway, so yeah, in that chapter I talk about that story, and then just talking about, on a more serious level, just that feeling that we're about to have our hidden hottie list discovered in life. As adults, as teenagers, we all kind of walk around with that, and the beauty of the gospel is that our hottie list has been found. Like, we are sinners. We have to recognize that that wasn't a sin. I'm just kind of shifting now. But, you know, everything that we've been hiding is exposed before the Lord, and we can rest when we know that he loves us, no matter what that list is, whether it's a silly list that's no big deal, or whether it's like major sin in our lives. So that's kind of the point of that chapter. But
Because so much time, Scarlet, is spent, don't you think, feeling ashamed, feeling like if people only really knew who I was, or if they knew this about me or that about me, or even as an adult thinking, well, I don't think I'm as good at my job as everybody else does, and if they really knew how I struggled over all of that. And sometimes even when I tell myself, Monica, this is ridiculous, like this conversation in your head goes nowhere. This is silliness. It's almost as if we can't get off that hamster wheel, that it's just really, really hard. And I know I'm so thankful, Scarlett, that you wrote this book for teen girls, because I think that is just such a heightened age for the hottie list, like for all of it, for feeling different than other people or not feeling accepted. What would you hope if someone got your book that they would walk away with?
Well, I hope that they would just be reminded what to look at. You know, I forgot how I worded it in there, but just if we stop looking in the mirror, which tells us what we look like, and look to our Savior who tells us who we are, that's when we can walk with real confidence, not confidence that comes in, oh, I don't have any pimples the day I'm on TV, but confidence that comes from Jesus loves me, and I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I can go serve people and be used by him today, like with that perspective. And I think, and you hit on this earlier, but someone recently asked me, you know, when did you have that moment as a teenager that you found freedom from it all? And I was like, I didn't have that moment, and I still have to remind myself to look at the right things. So I just hope it encourages people to keep doing that, moms who read it, and teenagers especially. So.
And, you know, one of the things that I think is that we imagine that someday there will be this day, like, of, well, what is freedom from it all? What is that, and what does that look like when it happens? And it really, as we trust Christ, and as we look at the good news, which is the gospel, we get freedom from it all in different ways on different days, but we still, while we're living in this fallen world, we're going to have these thoughts, but if we don't know how to fight back with the truth, that's when we really get sunk, I think.
Totally. Yeah, that's what I hope it does. I hope it helps people look at the truth and look to God's word to tell them who they are, because that's really what the whole book is about. You know, you read all the highlight issues, eating disorders, all these things that teen girls are prone to find themselves in. I just hope it points them in the right direction. And also, just as someone, I just know when I was a teenager, you don't want to listen to your parents. And so many of these things I'm saying, my parents were trying to tell me, but I wouldn't listen. When I was in love with the football player, and my dad's like, Scarlett, think about something else. like, stop thinking about him. And I'm like, no, and, you know, I love him. Playing the song I made up on the piano about how we were in love. I just forgot what I was talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. But see, that's how it is. We can't get rid of that thought. You know, I can remember, like, thinking that I liked such and such boy, and I didn't want anyone to get on our phone, because in those days you could only get one phone call at a time. There wasn't call waiting. And I just thought, maybe he's going to call. And it was hard for me to, like, even enjoy a family activity, because really I didn't care anything about that, Scarlett. I just wanted that boy to call.
Is he going to call?
I didn't know what I was going to say if he did call. You know, I just wanted him to call. And, like, I knew that he was the one, and he was going to make, like, all the difference in my life. And I was just young, and I think if I would have known, Scarlett, that I wasn't alone, and that's what, like, I think a book like this can help girls do. And the book, again, is He Numbered the Pores on My Face. If you can read it, and, like, even as I read it, as an adult, or hopefully an adult maybe, it's like, I recognize it. Then I don't feel so alone. It, like, takes some of the sting out of that.
Well, I'm glad. It makes me happy.
How about the eating disorders? Is that something that you struggled with?
Oh yeah, I had a really bad one. You know, the worst version of all of them. I mean, I was anorexic bulimic at the peak, and it lasted for years, and it started in college. And I mean, that's one of my most powerful testimonies in my life that I like to reflect on when I want to remember how powerful God is, and how helpless I am without him, because I was very goody two-shoes, tried to follow all the rules, and then kind of got caught up in that by accident. And then I was just kind of like, how would I get into this? Because I was very self-righteous, and I never did anything wrong, but here I am doing this shameful thing every day and hiding it. And I was I was such an honest person before that, and I became so deceitful to hide it all the time. And meanwhile, I fell in love and married a pastor, and then I was working at a church, and this was still who I really was, or who I thought I was. And anyway, it's a long story. It's in the book, but I just talk about how the freedom came there, and I have had freedom for over 10 years now, and it's a miracle in my life.
That is miraculous.
But it was one of those things where I was a believer already, which made it even more shameful to me. I was like, how could I be doing this? And I was begging God to take it from me, and I remember praying and saying, just heal me, please heal me, and praying Bible verses in Jeremiah, heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed, save me, and I will be saved. And he wouldn't heal me, but he kept directing me to a verse, which was Proverbs 20:18, which says, he who conceals his sin will not prosper, but if you confess, you receive mercy. And I was like, I can't confess, I'm a pastor's wife. I can't confess, I work at a church. And so I was disobedient, and I was trying to get better on my own so I'd have this testimony someday, and it wasn't working. And then I finally confessed at my rock bottom moment of, I think I'm gonna die. I'm like checking my pulse to see if I'm still alive, because I was in really bad shape at that point. And so I called my husband, my new husband, told him everything, went to a counselor, and that day, like, I knew I was free. And I mean, it gives me chills still to talk about it, but I don't know if it was the second I confessed out loud, but it was like, I went to a counselor, and she was like, here's the steps. Every time you throw up, write this in this journal. And so there was like a plan in place, and I never wrote in the journal because I never even wanted to again. And it was like, yeah, I just knew in that moment, like, there's nothing I can bring to the table to make Jesus love me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't heal myself. I can't save myself. He loves me. And if I seek him and obey his word, not that he answers all of our prayers instantaneously, but I think that was a case of disobedience,
Yes, and he doesn't answer all of our prayers
the way
instantly,
we hope, yeah,
or the way that we hope, but he does answer our prayers. And I think so many times, Scarlet, I know I've done it, you just shared that you've done it, we're praying for healing, we have an idea of what that would look like, but he does answer, whether it's instantly or through a process or by an avenue of which I think that I do not approve. He does answer those prayers. We've got to take a break. We want you to stay with us. When we come back, we'll come back with some more in just a moment on Bridges.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.
Don't miss another episode of Bridges. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today, where you can find all of Monica's latest teachings and interviews. It's easy to do. Just visit youtube.com, search Monica Schmelter, and click subscribe. Once you are subscribed, click the bell icon to get notified when a new episode is available to view. Thanks for watching Bridges.
If you are just joining us today on Bridges, my guest is Scarlet Hiltibidal, and her book is He Numbered the Pores on My Face. And we're opening up conversation about something that almost all of us go through. And Scarlet, I'm so thankful that you wrote the book, because you have girls and you want them to grow up to be healthy women. And there's so many teens that are struggling with identity, whether it's an eating disorder or trying to count the pores on their face, or worried about all of this stuff. What would you say is just a really great lesson that the Lord taught you in the midst of some of your struggles?
That's a good question. I think in the midst of my teenage struggles, it's hard to say, because in the beginning of those struggles, I wasn't a believer. So like, I wish I could say he was with me, even when I felt ugly or unloved, but I didn't have that yet, you know? So in the midst of it, and you know, earlier in the segment, we talked about my eating disorder phase, and he was with me in that. And so by the time I met him, which I would say was age 14 is when I believed. And so things did change, and I did feel like, even though I didn't know how to be a person, and it was so hard, he was with me. And I mean, that's still how life is for me today. Life is so hard, but he's with me. But yeah, in those early days, I think it's really hard, whether or not you grow up in a Christian home. Like if you don't grow up in a Christian home, the world is scary, and you start realizing it when you're a teenager. And there's also so much pressure from so many people, and you're trying to figure out, who am I supposed to please and who am I supposed to serve, you know? And the world will say serve yourself, which is the opposite of the Bible. But even if you grow up in a Christian home, it's hard. You just don't have experience with God yet. So it's like, I remember believing and then going home and opening my Bible and being like, I think good people underline their Bibles. So I'm like underlining, and it was like maybe 1 second after the moment that I had pure faith, you know, my righteousness is filthy rags, but the second I believed, I immediately switched to, I better be a good enough person, good enough Christian.
Isn't that the truth?
I mean, like immediately. And that's what my first book was about, was kind of discovering, I mean, it's about fear and anxiety, but discovering that I can rest in this thing that Jesus did, dying for me, taking my place, giving me the ability to communicate with God and be reconciled to him, even though I've sinned and he's perfect and like, he's with me, like giving me a chance to experience his presence in my life. But yeah, just as a teenager, I didn't know how to do that yet. So it was lonely and hard. And
because we have zero experience as a teenager, and all of these new things are happening. You know, as I shared with you, I got these Whiteheads in the 7th grade, and they were like, they're the worst.
They're the
and
worst.
I didn't know Christ at the time. But I did throw up a few prayers to Jesus, because I heard people doing that, and I saw 0 results, right? And people told me, you know, you go out and you buy this cream, and you do this, and, you know, try to pop them, and it was so bad. And I just knew that if I could get rid of those, that, you know, I could be more popular, or that people would like me better. And at that time, my parents weren't Christian, so I had no framework, no reference. I'm just trying to grow up, and I think I wanted to be a good person. I know I wanted to be popular. You know, it was just all, it was just so frightening, and I had no framework to work from.
Yeah, I think, and a big part of this book, you just reminded me talking about that, is, you know, we are all reaching for these things as teenagers and adults and elderly people. Like, we're always reaching for these things we think will satisfy us. And in the editing process, it was so funny because my editor, who made the book so much better, Michelle, she's amazing. But she would be like, Scarlett, in this part, because I wasn't being clear, she was pointing out that I needed to fix this, but she'd say, you're writing as though you're kind of like this outcast here, but then in the next page, you're like this cocky cheerleader. And I was like, okay, one, I was unclear, so I'm gonna fix that. But 2, I was both. Like, that's why I wrote that way, because I had to clarify, like, in this season, I was an outcast with no friends, and my mom cut my bangs with the kitchen scissors. It wasn't her fault. I asked her to. I don't know why I did that. But then finally, the guy that I wanted to like me, the popular guy, liked me. And then it was like, oh, I've arrived. But then I realized in the moment I arrived, that wasn't it. So then it's like, well, he's got to love me. Like, he's got to want to marry me and talk about that. And it was never enough. You know, the beauty, the boys, the grades, the admiration of teachers. Like, I wanted everyone to think I was special and wonderful, and it was never enough. So whether I got the thing or not,
Because none of it is ever enough. And I think what you just said, well, this is true in this season, and that is true in that season. I remember saying to someone once, Scarlett, it's all true. All of that is true about me. I am insecure, I am afraid, and I'm strong and courageous. Just catch me on any given day. And one day I'm thinking, yes, I can walk on the water and get out there to Jesus. And the other day I'm thinking, I don't want to even get my feet wet. Forget that. So I think sometimes we hold people up to, well, you've got to just be this way or just this way. And honestly, teen girl, teen boy, adult, more seasoned adults, we're a mixed bag of contradictions.
Yeah, it's all about relationship with Christ, and we're all being made new little by little. And the joy and the peace that we long for and the status that we long for, we already have it through Christ. You know, we're heirs, we're adopted sons and daughters of God. And when we can live in that place, you know, that eternal place in our minds rather than this place, then those are the moments that I'm able to be peaceful or brave or strong, is when I'm believing that, you know?
Yes, and when we're walking in what we know, and it's possible to know it and fall away from it.
Yeah.
Every day is just not going to be, you know, I'm a straight A student. I never miss any days of school. All of my schoolwork. None of us hit it out of the ballpark every single day.
Right.
Except Jesus.
Yeah.
He's the only one that brings perfection to the table. The book, again, is He Numbered the Pores on My Face. And the subtitle I love. It's Haughty List, Clogged Pores, Eating Disorders, and Freedom from It All. I think even people older than teens can benefit from this book. I know when I was reading it, I was laughing and crying and like, that's me. That's me. Because this is life. And so you mentioned your daughters and that your husband's a pastor. Tell us a little bit about your family, if you would, please.
Sure. Okay. So my husband, he was a pastor in Miami. Now he works for Lifeway Christian Publishing Company. But I have 3 daughters. One of them is 8, 6, and 4. One of them we adopted from China, and she's so sweet. And our big life news right now is, so she was born without ears. I think I talked to you about this last time, but we all learned sign language during the adoption process. Didn't really know. She had a bunch of other medical issues too. We didn't know how she would be, if she'd be okay. And she's just thriving and has done great. But she doesn't have any ears. And so we found out like this week that our insurance is going to cover an ear surgery. So she's going to be able to be the same as her sisters, which is like her obsession. Like, she just wants to be the same. It's like, same, mommy. That's what she signs all day. And so she's so excited, and she'll get like these special hearing aid things that will improve her hearing. And she's a little miracle. So that's been a huge gift. That's kind of been the thing our family's been doing for the last 2 years. And they're so sweet together, and we have a lot of fun.
And I think when I hear you say that she just wants to be the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, He numbered the pores on my face.
Yeah.
She wants to be beautiful. She puts her little headbands and her sunglasses, and she's just very into that at 6 years old. 6. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is. But I think, you know, God is the creator of beauty.
Yeah.
And we're made in His image. So there's a part of us that long for beauty that's God-given. And I think that in the world that we live in, that we can settle for a counterfeit, which is just the outward.
Right.
And even though I know that intellectually it's still a struggle,
Yeah.
not to be overly concerned with what I look like, with my performance, but to rest in all the amazing, wonderful things that God has done. And when I hear you describe your little girl and she wants to be the same as her
I
sisters,
know.
we want to be the same. We do not want to stand out and be different in a negative way.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just such a trap of the enemy. He wants us to all be focused on what we look like, because then we're not looking at others, and we're not putting the needs of others before our own. You know, when I'm so focused, and I battle it all the time too, and my grandparents battle it all the time. I mean, it's just such a hard thing as a woman, also as a man, but I don't know. What do I know about men? I don't know.
Well, I don't know that either, but I think it must be somewhat of a struggle,
I think it must be somewhat. I don't know. Is it? It is. I'm getting a thumbs up.
I know for women of all ages, if we are honest, it's a struggle.
It's a struggle.
Scarlet.
I mean, every day it's a struggle. And like we were saying a minute ago, like, so we believe, right? But we can have these seasons where even if we're praying, even if we're saying the words, we're not living it. We're living for ourselves, you know? So
That's right. And, you know, like you said, it robs us from serving others.
Yeah.
But it also just makes us stinking miserable.
So miserable. I know.
You said it. It's never enough.
It's never enough. So when I was in the eating disorder phase, like I achieved my skinniness goal and then some. And I felt uglier than I had ever felt, you know, because it's like we strive for these things. We strive for good. That's a bad thing. We strive for good things. And then we get them, and then it's just, so.
The big lie
The
is
big
that
lie.
someday we're going to find it.
Right.
And that it is going to solve
Yeah.
everything, when in fact, hope for life is Jesus.
Yeah, I think we just have to keep reminding each other to look up, you know?
Absolutely. And that's what this book is all about. Thank you so much, Scarlett, for
Thank you,
coming and for
Monica.
sharing your book today.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Monica will be right back with closing comments.
Log on to www.ctntv.org, where you can make a prayer request, view our program guide, see who's on Bridges, or even watch one of Monica's latest teachings. Log on to www.ctntv.org.
When I truly turned my heart to the Lord, He took every sin I ever did away from me.
God really is your other half. God, He's the only person who can really, fill those holes and cracks in your heart that you're so wanting someone to fill.
It's no good to have a big dream if you're not putting yourself in motion to go after that.
Prayer changes things. If you need prayer, call 615-754-0039 or email prayer@ctntv.org.
Today on Bridges, we talked about how really being overly concerned about our outward appearance can really rob us of enjoying being able to relate to other people, being able to freely receive the love that God has for each of us. And while it is important, of course, to care about our appearance, being too concerned about it can be counterproductive. And the only way that I know to lessen that is to focus on God, how much He loves us, and the value that He gives to each of us. And as we walk and as we live in the value that He assigns, everything in life takes on a new perspective. Of course, that doesn't mean that we stop brushing our hair or care about what we look like. It just means that that is not the sole focus of our life. Jesus said Himself, "I didn't come to be served, but I came to serve others and to give my life as a ransom for many." So the way that we really find freedom is in Jesus Christ. It's in obeying God's word. It's in loving our neighbor as ourselves and freely giving because we have received so freely from Jesus Christ. So I encourage you today that while we battle in this world, and while this world is obsessed with what people look like, with what people weigh, while we are measured in this world by some of those factors and some of those things, I think that we can refuse to allow that to really grade and to monitor our whole life and to filter our thoughts about who we are. Today, you can give yourself a break from all of that and just say, God, I freely receive your love. And I realize that I have value because your word says that not even a sparrow falls, but that you don't know it. And how much more, His word says, does He care for us? So today, know that you are loved, that you are cared, that you are valued, and you can live your life out of that value. We've got to go, but we say goodbye and God bless you.